Welcome to Real World, Real Talk with Dr. D.Z. Cofield. The show represents captivating conversations and insightful information to encourage and inspire you with all you need to become the best you can possibly be. And now your host for Real World, Real Talk, Dr. D.Z. Cofield.
Welcome to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, D.Z. Cofield, and you're listening to your member-supported public radio station, your number one source for jazz and more, KTSU 90.9, The Choice, on the FM dial here in Houston, Texas, and KTSUradio.com. Well, let me take this opportunity to officially welcome you into the holiday season. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. All of the other religious groups who will be celebrating holidays throughout the next month and a half or so, we wish you well in all of those celebrations. But without question, our celebration season is going to be curtailed greatly. It's going to be different because of COVID-19, because of the economic upheaval, because of the division in our country. And today we're going to have a show that we've handled in the past, but I think it's going to be a little different this time. We're going to talk about the winter blues, the holiday blues, and how to manage those blues so that you can get through them in the best possible way. We have a special guest with us on today. You don't want to miss the show. And if you know of somebody who may be struggling, who may be a little anxious, maybe a little stressed about what's happening or not happening this holiday season, make sure you tell them to tune in on 90.9 FM here in the Houston metropolitan area or KTSUradio.com anywhere else in the world. You can also download the KTSU app. Now, if you'd like to follow me during the week, you can follow me on Instagram at DZ Cofield. You can follow me on Facebook at DZ Cofield, and you can follow me on Twitter at, you guessed it, DZ Cofield. Well, needless to say, there is typically a lot of excitement around the holiday season. We're looking forward to renewing acquaintances with family members and friends that we haven't seen, that we haven't had an opportunity to spend time with. All of those things that go along with the holidays, food, family, football, fellowship, all of those great things. And typically our expectations are greater than the reality. We have this Norman Rockwell kind of picture, a portrait painting of what the holidays are going to look like. But typically we can't stay around our family members much longer than 2.5 days. Some of us, we can't stay around longer than 1 day, right? Once you get through the meal and the football, it's time to say goodbye. Well, this year is really, really different because COVID-19 is with us. And the predictions that COVID would be gone by now have proven to be false prognostication. COVID is not just alive and well in many of our states, including here in the state of Texas, the first state to go over 1 million positive COVID cases. And we're seeing deaths on the rise as well. COVID is affecting us like nothing ever has before. Add to that the economic upheaval, and man, it's just going to be a holiday like none other. I'm happy to welcome with me today the executive director, the CEO of the Mental Health Association of Greater Houston, and that's none other than Renae Tomczak. She's been in this position since 2018. Previously, she served as the CEO of MHA of Northwest Indiana, where she was co-founder of the Indiana MHA Executive Roundtable. Renae also served as Chief Planning and Development Officer for a community mental health center, where she led the development of a permanent supportive housing project. In addition to her nonprofit leadership experience, Renae has experience as a consultant to nonprofit organizations and an entrepreneur. She holds a bachelor's degree in communications and public relations from Purdue University and an MBA from Indiana Wesleyan University. I want you to join me in welcoming to Real World Real Talk today, none other than Renae Tomczak. Renae, welcome to Real World Real Talk. Thank you for being with us on today.
Thank you, Dr. Cofield. I'm excited to be here.
So needless to say, your job has been busy as the CEO and president of Mental Health America of Greater Houston. What are some of the things that you've been dealing with, and what are some of the things that you've been dealing with as a result of COVID that has raised numbers, exasperated some of the mental health issues that we see people dealing with on a normal basis?
Sure. So it's no surprise to anybody listening that COVID has brought forth, greater awareness about mental health and mental illness. There's always been a stigma around it, but now there probably is not a person alive today that hasn't felt some of the stress that has come about because of the pandemic. And for us, we've been busier than we've ever been. Our work is focuses primarily on prevention and early intervention. Like many businesses and nonprofit organizations, we had to completely change our model, pivot to a remote environment, which we continue to do today, offering all the services that we have. And the areas that we work are in children's mental health, veteran wellness, integrated healthcare, and then just general mental health literacy. And that probably is maybe the strongest area during this, because so many people want to know about mental health and what more they can do to feel better about life in 2020.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, you came in July of 2018, which means you came right after Harvey.
Correct.
So you got a baptism by fire in dealing with the aftermath of Harvey. And now we're seeing all of these hurricanes coming into the Gulf Coast area and Central America this year as well. So what are some of the things that, I guess, as I think about our conversation today, I want to talk about mental health in general, because there are issues that we need to speak to and address, especially around the holidays, period.
Right.
But then in addition to that, I want to talk about the uniqueness of this year dealing with COVID-19 and the economic upheaval and crisis in our country, the strain in our country around this election, and, just all of those things that have added to making this year a year like no other. So let's talk in general first around the holidays and what happens to many people as we come into the holidays. And it's almost like we come into the holidays with like these great expectations, like, man, this is going to be the year that all of the family members are going to get along and we're going to love one another and we're going to sing Kumbaya songs with each other. And then every year something happens. And typically, I know in my family, it usually happened at around Friday afternoon.
Right. Yeah.
And then Saturday morning, it was like, okay, everybody's getting out. It's like, but you don't have to go back to work until Monday. Well, no, I need to get back. I need to leave now.
Yeah. Other people to see, other friends.
Right.
Yeah. Everything we've looked forward to is certainly tempered this year. I don't care how, we see people who on one hand are very much concerned about what's happening, and others who are less concerned, and right or wrong, how people feel, everybody is being, impacted by this. So some of the things that we would talk about and how to deal with holiday stress have changed. What I would have said in 2019 is not what I'd say in 2020. The more opportunities that you have to connect with people is great. I mean, I'm a hugger by nature. I haven't hugged anybody in, 9 months here now.
Wow.
So we have to learn much differently. Of course, we can still connect, but it's not the same. And we're all feeling a tremendous sense of loss. And that's why you hear from mental health professionals, you hear it again and again. You need to take care of yourself. And I want to remind everybody here today, self-care is not selfish, right? You have to take care of yourself here because we are going to come out of this. COVID will end eventually, and we want to be able to go on.
Yeah. Self-care is not selfish. That's a great thought. So seasonal affective disorder is hard enough to deal with. I want us to talk just for a moment about grief in the context of COVID. We talked before we got on the air. I was talking to a gentleman, had trouble reaching him, and it wasn't like him. He normally calls me right back or gets back in touch with me within a couple of days, and weeks had gone by. When I finally talked to him, he told me he was at a funeral home. He's planning the funeral of his niece, 25 years old, and how hard it was on his family. And I asked him, how is his family faring in COVID? And he said, we've had 13 people die. And I was dumbfounded. I mean, he just said it, and I could hear the hollowness and the hurt in his voice when he said it. There are going to be some empty chairs around the table during the holiday season. What are you all saying to families who are dealing with that kind of grief, whether it's one or two family members, or in his case, 13, which is almost unimaginable when you talk about loss and the holidays, a time which celebrates family? What are you saying to people in terms of how to handle this season?
Right. So, some of the things don't change, right? You still need to set healthy boundaries as we think about the holidays. I mean, look, this has happened to this gentleman right before Thanksgiving here. If you're experiencing, grief, especially new grief, that it's very painful to do the things you wanted to do or normally would do, then you have to learn to say no. And that goes back to that self-care piece that we were talking about. I'm sure for this gentleman and anybody who has had a loss, right? You feel helpless. There's nothing you can do. But there are things you can do in your life that things that you can control to lessen the heartache that you feel. And you have to realize that it goes on for others, but that it's okay for you to feel that you need some alone time here, and you might do something you hadn't done before. Actually, before COVID, what I would say, I've known people who, instead of the holidays, they've taken a single vacation or gone somewhere that you do less of that. But in this case, you're going to have to find ways to do that from your home. You have to stay connected to people. That is so very important. I have been very mindful and thoughtful when people talk about social distancing. That is such the wrong term. It's physical distancing. You have to find those ways to connect, and we can. I have said many times, technology, can't live with it, can't live without it. Could you imagine what this world would be like if we didn't have this, if you and I could not have this dialogue today and share some thoughts and hope and real practical tips with people to help them continue on?
Yeah, I don't know how they made it through the Spanish flu, to be perfectly honest with you. I will tell you a funny story. So we did a drive-by celebration of one of our members who was celebrating her 102nd birthday. And so as we drove by, because, they wanted to, of course, practice physical distancing, I've had surgery, so all I could do was slide in the back seat and wave at her. I couldn't get out. And my wife took her some flowers and a card from us. And they said, okay, don't get too close to her, just hand her the flowers. And she is sharp as a tack. And she said, baby, come on over here and give me a kiss. And my wife was like, well, no, we got to physically. She said, look, I done survived one pandemic. I'm making it through the second one. I'm fine. Come on and give me some sugar, right?
Yeah.
And so we laughed about that because of her perspective. What do you say to somebody who is grieving during the holidays?
So that's a really great question, because that's difficult for all of us, right? You feel inadequate. You don't know what to say, and you really want to help. So I have a few ideas for you, right? Something very simple. If you reach out and tell somebody, I'm thinking of you, that lets them know that you really care. One of the things that people often say is talk about peace, right? I hope you find peace. They're not going to find peace immediately, right? So think about changing that a little bit and saying, may peace present itself more and more every day. Because it is, there is no finite period here that's going to define how long people are going to grieve. Let them do that in their own time, and wish them peace as they continue on that journey. Reaching out, of course, as we said, technology is great. I think we've lost what comes through and how our heart feels when we open the mail, right? Think about sending a handwritten note to somebody. Just again, very simple thoughts. Share a memory of somebody that they have lost. If you knew that person personally, that will bring great joy to them. Thinking about gift giving, right? Normally, I can tell you, for me, I love to take gifts to people's homes or home baked goods. I can't do that this year, right? So if somebody experiences severe loss or a loss of life here, think about making a donation. What did that person love? Maybe they were a big environmentalist or, a pet charity, right? They love their pet, right? Make a donation in that person's name. But probably the most important thing to remember is you're there to listen. It's okay that you don't know what to say. Letting them know that you can spend time with them and just hear what they have to say does somebody a world of good in that.
Do men and women grieve differently? And I'm asking that question because one of the places of conflict when families get together is this almost disagreement around how to grieve.
Yeah.
Some people, want to remember the person. Some people want to leave an empty chair. Some people say, you know what, we celebrated their life, but we have to move on. And, please don't let somebody say that. And that appears to be very insensitive when somebody else is saying, hey, we need to do this. Everybody needs to go around and say something about our loved one, mother, grandmother, whoever it is. Right. And some people don't want to relive that because of how they grieve. Do we see a difference in how people grieve along gender lines?
Grief is deeply personal, right? It's not something that we can generalize in any way, whether you're talking about gender or you're talking about race, culture. It's a personal journey for people. So now there are masculine behaviors, some of the things that you talked about, some people prefer to deal with pain silently. They use that as a sense of control. Some people want to move past it quicker. When we think about feminine behaviors and associated with grief, right? They want to tell their story again and again to anybody who will listen. They seek support and making those connections. They're focused on the remembrance, and they could at some point feel guilty if they've forgotten for one day. Just sharing my own personal story. I remember my dad died 34 years ago, right? I still feel it today. He passed away after a very long illness. And my mother and I handled it completely differently. We were his caregivers. I was 22 at the time, fairly young. I cried a lot. And I remember my mom did not, and we talked about that. And for her, she said, he suffered so long, his pain is gone, and I'm at peace with that. So, we both got through a very difficult time for us in two different ways. And there was no right or wrong to that. And we have to remember that when we're talking with somebody and trying to help somebody who is dealing with grief in their own way.
Yeah, I think that is so insightful. There really isn't a right or wrong way to grieve. We all grieve differently. There have been times I know in my line of work when I've walked in to talk to families who have just experienced loss, and you see those extremes and you hear the anger and frustration because they don't realize this person, for example, in their own nervousness and their anxiety, they're laughing and joking, but they're grieving, and the other person is sobbing inconsolably.
Right.
They're grieving. It doesn't look the same way. It doesn't manifest itself the same way, but they're both grieving. Grief is not only about the loss of a loved one. It's about the loss of normalcy. And if we've ever experienced the loss of normalcy, we've experienced it this year. Again, I think since the beginning to middle of March, we have experienced loss, and some have even experienced a loss of hope. And now that we're going into the holidays, that loss of normalcy, we can't have the big groups. I'm gonna have some family members. We may have dinner together virtually. You all, get on the screen. I get on the screen. How you all doing? What's happening? What's going on? And that's going to be the extent of it. What are you saying to those family members and people in general? I think we're just experiencing the loss of normalcy, period. Whether it's hanging out with friends, going to the office, going to the gym,
right.
Just a normal routine having been disrupted, having to have to wear a mask and physical distance and all of those things. What are you saying to people about that loss of normalcy? Because I guess for me, one of the first things I always try to encourage people to recognize is that everybody's going through it, that this is not abnormal, that it is our next normal, that we're all experiencing that.
Right. So I'm going to sound like a broken record because there are still ways for us to connect. Making those connections are so very important. During this time for me, I've connected with so many people that I had not spoken to for years. That includes family, because you kind of put that off, right? Somebody doesn't live close by, or, you have different lives, busy lives. I reached out to a cousin of mine that I haven't talked to for 3 years, right? We were able to connect, and it did my heart so very good in that. So, we always want to try to focus on, what can we do? What can we control? That was something that I could control. We need to think about, consider making lists, right? Making a list of things that you can do. And I do not want to forget to talk about gratitude. One of the things that we do here at Mental Health America when a new employee comes is we give them a gratitude journal. Very simple journal. It's got, every day listed and says, what are 3 things that you feel very grateful for? And that is a really important part of helping to deal with grief, and whether that grief is from the loss of a loved one or loss of normalcy. You will find that will help you. And I think a big part of that, it just takes the emphasis off of the negative things in your life. And, so you may think you have nothing to be grateful about, but I think if you really think about it, that you will find that there are things that you can celebrate in your life. Getting outdoors, right? That's another positive thing that I think has happened with COVID. Bike sale, you can't go into a store. You won't find a bicycle anywhere, right? People are getting out more. And I think people are taking care of themselves better. So making sure you do that. I keep going back to that self-care, right? Eating better. We are so lucky, as you and I were talking, Dr. Cofield. I came from the Chicago area. How lucky we are to be in Houston here and being able to get out more and enjoy things that are here. That other places, it's a little harder to do that.
Yeah, I think it's important for everyone to know not everyone with seasonal affective disorder has the same symptoms. But according to the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, 5th edition, let me just give our listeners some of the symptoms commonly associated. So if you're feeling these things, you're not by yourself and you're not crazy. It just happens this time of year, and it's being exacerbated because of all that's going on. Feelings of hopelessness and sadness, thoughts of suicide, hypersomnia or a tendency to oversleep, a change in appetite, especially a craving for sweet or starchy foods, weight gain, a heavy feeling in the arms or legs, a drop in energy level, decreased physical activity, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, irritability, increased sensitivity to social rejection, avoidance of social situations. I think what's interesting to me, Renae, and please share your comments on this. Mm-hmm. There's kind of the normal ebb and flow that we normally experience, whether it's summer seasonal affective disorder or winter seasonal affective disorder, and we kind of know those things. But because of COVID, it's like everything has been turned kind of upside down. And so even those situations where we would normally want to avoid, for example, social situations and interactions, because we have had to avoid them for the last 6-7 months,
right?
We're kind of going, man, can I hug somebody? Like, please, can I interact with somebody?
Yeah.
And it seems like we're just kind of topsy-turvy. Am I accurate when I say that? Because sure. I know for me personally, I kind of don't know what to feel at times. I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't even know where to go with this right now. I'm just kind of feeling blah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, that's true of all of us here. The sense of loss is so profound. I mean, everything, you mentioned earlier talking about the election, as well as some of the, civil unrest that we're seeing. It's all a byproduct of what's happened here with COVID. So we have to realize that these are all normal feelings that we're going to continue to have. We're not in this alone, right? We all feel it. And there are those opportunities to connect, even though it may look much different. And I know I sound like a broken record, but finding those things, opportunities to connect, doing the things that you enjoy, right? I used to love to read. And I will tell you, since coming here, I have had learning a new community, learning a new job, no time for that. I've gotten back to that, right? And I forgot how much I loved it. So finding, adapting your routine and finding those ways to deal with different things that are troubling you. You have to be willing to change. Everybody who knows me knows when I hear that something has changed, I always say the same thing. Change is good. It is good, right? You've got to learn to accept things in your mind, and you find ways to get past it. There are ways for everybody to do that, and there are also people who can help you do that. It's interesting, and you mentioned the seasonal affective disorder, and how that can impact people. And so, as I've said, I came from the Chicago area. I'm in Houston. I'm thinking there is no such thing like that here. Did some research and found, it's actually true even in an area here, because it's really not about temperature, it's about daylight. So I was telling somebody the other day, I get home at 6 o'clock and it feels like 9 o'clock, and I don't know what to do for the next 3 hours. So, I've taken up sewing. That's something else that I've, started to do. I hadn't done it for a very long time. So finding new opportunities what better time than now to find something new, to learn something new.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, Dr. DZ Cofield, and you're listening to your member-supported public radio station, The Choice 90.9 KTSU and KTSUradio.com. Today, we're talking about the winter blues, how to manage holiday grief, especially in this season of COVID-19. Renae, you stated earlier that self-care is not selfish. I want to read a list of some suggestions for self-care, and if you would comment on each of these, and let's give our listening audience some tips, some things that they can do. The first self-care treatment, and the reason I want to read this list, especially for many in our audience, is because many of the things we used to do for self-care, we have not been able to do. I know for me, I love to travel, and I have some friends that I travel with, and we were lamenting that, by now we would have been 2 or 3 places. My wife and I, our birthdays are 1 day apart. So we always plan a big trip for our birthdays, and, her birthday is the day before mine, and we celebrate our birthdays together. And my youngest son said, what are y'all going to do for your birthdays this year? And we were like, look at each other at home. I mean, it's like, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But what I realized was when I read this list, many of the things that I would typically do, these things would be included in there. Mm-hmm. So now it's incumbent upon us to be creative in how we do some of those things. And some of these things we've already stated, but for somebody who may have a paper and pencil, write down some of these things. So first thing they say is monitor your mood and your energy level. Monitor your mood and your energy level. Give our listening audience, Renae, some ideas on how to do that.
Sure. You talked about that pencil and paper, right? And I talked about the gratitude journals that you can buy. I would do it with a fun little symbol, right? If you're feeling happy, right, make a sunshine, right? If you're feeling sad, make a sad face. Monitor that every day. If you're feeling angry, whatever it might be, that would be really helpful to you, not only as you look at that, let's say every week or so, but it also will help you determine, do you need some additional help in there? And one of the things that Mental Health Americas all over the country believe in, the kind of an underlying philosophy, is the idea of before stage 4, right? So when you're starting to feel symptoms that just don't feel right to you, then reach out for help, whether that's talking to a professional or talking to a friend or calling your doctor. televisits are something that we've learned to do now. You can find helpful resources for that.
Yeah. Second on the list, take advantage of available sunlight. I've learned personally that I don't have to go on vacation to go sit in the sun. So, and especially to your point here in Houston, we're in a beautiful stretch of weather now. And I've literally just said to my wife, I need some vitamin D today. Let me just get a chair and I'm just going to sit outside and enjoy some sun. And that infusion of vitamin D is really, really important. You talked earlier about, bicycle sales and outdoor activities. You can't find a lot of equipment on the shelves. You can't find bicycles in a lot of stores because people are taking advantage of that. It's important for people to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Whether I'm guessing grocery stores might have this there, but I know most stores do. Put more light in your house. You can actually buy lamps that simulate sunshine, but simply turn on the lights in your house. And I will tell you, I'm very much like, my mother trained me well, right? Turn off the lights if you're not in a room. Why do you need all the lights on? It may be more generational that you hear that. And so I say that all the time. Not anymore, right? Let there be light, right? We all know that. That's really helpful. If we can't get it, looks a little bit cloudy out there right now where I'm at, but turn those lights on. And you talked about vitamin D, right? Comes from the sun. You can buy vitamin D supplements. I was advised talking to your doctor before taking anything, even if it's a supplement like that. But it's amazing what it will do for you. Yeah.
The next on the list is to plan pleasurable activities for the winter season. And I'm going to add to that, plan physical activities that you actually get up and get moving. We talked about bike riding, but if you don't have a bicycle, even if it's just taking a walk.
Walking is great. When I purchased my home here in 2019, one of the conditions and why I chose my home is there's a creek behind it and a walking path behind it. I have the opportunity to see so many people. It's a very wide path, so you can be six feet apart in that. I take advantage of a 30-minute walk. Okay, you don't have 30 minutes, right? Take 10 minutes. Take 10 3-minute walk. I'm sorry, 3 10-minute walks. It will do wonders for you. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife for years would do yoga, and we were talking, and she realized that she had stopped doing it. And even though she can't go to a yoga studio, her daughter is a yoga instructor, and she told her, hey, send me some videotapes. And she's been posting stuff on YouTube. And so she's been getting up the last, week, and she's been doing, her yoga routines in the morning. Yep. And man, she came upstairs dancing this morning. I said, boy, you feeling really good, huh?
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. I love that dancing piece. I am I'm more of a news junkie. I've always listened to talk radio, at least for, probably the last 15, 20 years. I have learned to love music again. I used to sing. I'm not much of a dancer, but I have learned, now that's all I listen to is music. I pick a decade and I love to sing along. It's amazing what it can do for you. And I do dance. I'm not very good at it, but just that's getting your body, you've got to release those endorphins. Our bodies are made to help us stay healthy.
Yeah.
And movement is one of the easiest things you can do. And exercise, look at YouTube, right? Just Google it. I used to belong to a gym. Gym's closed, right? I can find all the videos I could possibly want, exercise videos, by this internet, right? Whether it's on your phone or on your computer, they're available to you.
Yeah. Next on the list, you can probably help us with this, is approaching winter with a positive attitude. And I think what's interesting is we are really spoiled here.
We certainly are. Yeah.
Especially South Texas. We're spoiled. I mean, I know friends who golf on Christmas Day. I mean, so we're super spoiled. If it's 50 degrees outside, we're claiming it's cold. I mean, I don't want to go out or anything. But how can we approach this with a more positive attitude?
If you're in a colder climate, and that's interesting what you said, right? 50 is cold to you. From where I come from, that's a heat wave when that happens in December. But it's no surprise. You know that it is coming. So make a plan, right? You can't hope that we're going to have a warmer winter. You need to make a plan and figure out what will make you happy during that time, right? I talked about that lamp, right? Finding ways to, bring more sunshine into your life. Plan, I tell people when I came here that I had 19 coats. I gave away 19 coats before I moved here.
Wow.
I'm not exaggerating. I promise. I had 19 coats, one for about any kind of weather you could possibly imagine. But you've got to set your mind up for success. Learn to embrace it. I know a couple years ago, my girlfriend and I decided to go to the big Chicago holiday parade that happens around Thanksgiving. And the weather was awful, just awful. But we planned for it. We prepared. We wanted to go. You've got to control your mind and not let your mind control you. Think about these things in advance, and you can deal with anything.
Yeah. As we get ready to close, what are some things that you want Houstonians to know, and those who are listening around the world, regarding handling the holiday blues? What's some permission that you want to give our listening audience regarding how to make it through the holidays in the best mindset possible?
Yeah. We spent a lot of time talking about grief, and some of the things I would say about grief really apply to dealing with the holidays this year. Expect that you're going to feel more vulnerable this year. Expect mood swings. Those are going to happen. Your sleeping habits, your eating habits, all of those things. But set yourself some healthy boundaries. Think about what you can control. Know that it's okay to feel your emotions. Be patient with yourself. Find gratitude. One more thing I want to talk about that wasn't on your list that you started. Don't underestimate the power of smells. So if you come into my office here, we have a little aromatherapy station set up, right, with different oils, and there's things you can do for energy or relaxation. You don't even have to go buy those, right? One of my favorite smells is cinnamon. And I bet most people have that in their cabinet, right? Or vanilla, right? Those are things that also can help you increase your mood and feel better. And I would welcome anybody who just can't seem to get through the holidays or through whatever they might be feeling. Visit our website at mhahouston.org. We have resources there for you. There are so many options. And if you don't want to talk to somebody, you can text somebody and you can find the help that you need.
The power of smell.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? Renae, I've never thought about that, but
Yeah.
I don't know if anything can transport you to a place or to a time like music and a smell.
Yeah.
A
Right?
song can take you back and you can remember a person, a place, or a thing,
Sure.
and a smell can do the same thing.
Absolutely.
I walked in a room and somebody was smoking a pipe, and I thought about my grandfather, and I thought about my dad. And
we have that in common. My grandfather smoked a pipe. He used some kind of cherry tobacco. I still say to this day, that's why cherry's my favorite fruit, because I loved him dearly. And yeah, I share that reminder, that memory of the smell of a pipe. So,
well, Renae Tomczak, CEO of Mental Health America of Greater Houston, thank you for being with us today on Real World, Real Talk. I really appreciate it. You've given us some great insight, and I hope our listening audience will take your information and really apply it to their lives. We know Thanksgiving, we know Christmas. It's not going to be the same for a variety of reasons, but it might just be the opportunity to start some new traditions. And
absolutely.
So we thank you for being with us on today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cofield, and happy holidays.
Same to you. Same to you.
Happy holidays to everybody.
So the late Vernon John says, when you see a good fight, get in it. And I always add, if you don't see a good fight, start one. And the fight for your mental wellness is a fight that you want to make sure you are engaged in. And this year is different. And I want really to just affirm everybody to know that it's different. And it may get messy sometimes. You may start crying uncontrollably, and you may be looking around saying, man, why am I crying? I found myself, I'll confess to you, man, I'm crying at some commercials, and I'm like, man, what in the world is wrong with you? Why are you crying at this commercial? Right. Or I'll watch a show that I've seen before and I start feeling some kind of way. All of those things are going to be normal. You're going to have some mood swings. You're going to feel some ways. But here's what I want to encourage you to do. Just keep pressing and just keep fighting. And those things that you can control, take those things on. Get that sunlight. Start taking some vitamin D. Start walking. Start exercising. Start moving. Start changing your perspective on things. Get out and get a bicycle, or get that old bicycle out and get it serviced and pump the air in the tires and start riding. If it's nothing but riding around the block one time, start doing the things you need to do. I think for many of us, not just during the holidays, I think beginning in March, we really started this journey with COVID-19 thinking, well, it's going to last a couple of weeks and then we'll be back. Well, it's going to last a couple of months and then we'll be back. And now it's looking like it's going to last a year before we get back. But now that we've been in this for a while, it's time for you to start thinking through what your new norm is going to be. I want to thank Renae Tomczak for being with us on today. And I hope you've been blessed. Listen, have a great Thanksgiving holiday. Even if you can't be around family and friends as you have been in the past, maybe you have to go out by yourself. Maybe you have to pick up dinner. It doesn't matter. You have so much to be thankful for. Now, I know for many of us, the spirit of gluttony is going to be in the house. And as a friend of mine would say, he would say to me, he said, I told him, I said, man, make sure you control that spirit of gluttony. Don't overeat. And he would say to me, the spirit is willing, but the flesh will eat. So make sure you don't do too much damage. If you do have an opportunity to be around family and friends, enjoy them. If not, use the technology, stream them, Zoom them, and make sure you say you love them to the people that you care about the most. This is Dr. DZ Cofield for Real World, Real Talk, signing off. You've been listening to The Choice. 90.9 KTSU, your community station, and KTSUradio.com. Get ready for Truth with V. Michael McKay, David Goldstein, and Asia on 90.9 FM. All right. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real World, Real Talk. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes every week. Follow us via social media using the @RWRTDZ username on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To submit any comments, questions, sponsor opportunities, or future show suggestions, visit us online at rwrtdz.com or via email at info@rwrtdz.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you've been inspired to be the change you want to see in the world today. Until next time, be real, keep it real, and stay real.